All right, today's video, we are going to look at solving rational equations. So this one really comes down to, do you know how to make a common denominator and with fractions? And if so, do you then know how to clear denominators, which kind of can be a little tricky sometimes. So we're gonna do some practice. All right, here we go. Okay, so solving a rational equation. This should probably be a pretty quick video. This is just a little tedious, but it is not too complicated. It really comes down to creating common denominators. All right, so when you're solving a rational equation, so remember we said rationals were fractions that have variables in the numerator and the denominator. All right, so if you look at our practice problem, we definitely have that going on. All right, and then an equation is just anything with an equal sign. All right, so if you, again, look at our problem, we have an equal sign in there. All right, so our goal all right, we want to solve for the variable. All right, we're going to do that by creating a common denominator. So we're going to create a common denominator. All right, and this is with the whole problem. So we're not just creating a common denominator on the left or the right side of the equal sign. We're creating a common denominator for the whole problem. All right, so create a common denominator for the whole problem. All right, once we have that common denominator, we can multiply both sides of our equation by that common denominator, and it's going to do what's called clearing the denominator. All right, so create a common denominator for the whole problem, then multiply by that common denominator. There we go. Took a second for it to catch up, but it caught up. All right, so let's just get into our practice problem. All right, so looking at this lovely practice problem, we see that there are chances for us to do some factoring. All right, so we have this 2m squared plus m minus 15. That definitely looks like it can probably be factored, so that's where I'm going to start. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to factor that thing right there. So this is one where I'm going to use my box. I'm going to put my 2m squared in the top corner. I'm going to put my minus 15 in the bottom corner. We have a leading coefficient of a 2, so we do have to multiply a times c. All right, so we want to do a times c, which is going to be 2 times negative 15. That's going to be negative 30. And then my b value is 1, right? There's nothing in front of the m, so that tells us there's a 1. So I want two numbers that multiply to negative 30 and add to 1. All right, well, that's not so bad. All right, so 30, so I'm thinking 6 and 5, right? 6 times 5 makes 30, and if your 5 is negative, then 6 plus negative 5 will give you 1. So I think it's going to be 6 times negative 5. Because that will fit both of my scenarios right here. So I'm now going to go ahead and I'm going to fill in the boxes of my factoring little box. There we go. It finally filled in after me. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to factor. So I'm going to GCF that top row. So I'm going to pull out a 2m. And that means I have another m on the top over here to multiply by. And then I need a 3 to multiply by that 2m. And then this is going to be negative 5. All right, so we'll let the computer catch up. It is really, really lagging. It'll catch up in a second. There it goes. Okay, so factored form would then be 2m minus 5 and m plus 3. All right, so I'm going to come over here, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rewrite it. So I have m plus 4 over 2m minus 5 m plus 3 equals 1 over 2m minus 5 minus 2m plus 3. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, now this is just something that I find helps me because I do tend to drop my negatives a lot. So instead of having a subtraction problem on my right-hand side of my equation, I'm going to change it to an addition sign by making the 2 negative. So I'm going to change this to plus negative 2. Sometimes I do drop the negatives. We have seen in some previous videos, I tend to do that. So I have to make changes that are going to help me with that. And this is one of the changes that I find is really helpful. So if you are doing a subtraction problem, sometimes it's nice to just go ahead, change it to an addition problem, and then just distribute that negative. It's not illegal. You're allowed to do this in math. And like I said, it's just something that I find helps me a lot when I'm doing my problems. Okay, so now I need to figure out my common denominator. All right, so remember, I have to make one common denominator for the entire problem. So I'm looking and I have a 2m minus 5 and I have an m plus 3. All right, well, that's what I think my common denominator is going to be. So my common denominator is going to be 2m minus 5 and then m plus 3. All right, so on the left-hand side of my equal sign, that denominator is perfectly fine. I don't need to do anything to it. All right, but on the right-hand side, I do need to make some additions. So for that first term, the 1 over 2m minus 5, I'm missing the m plus 3 piece. So I must multiply top and bottom by m plus 3. All right. My second term on that right-hand side is missing the 2m minus 5. So I need to multiply top and bottom by 2m minus 5. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of simplify this a little bit. All right, so I've got m plus 4 all over 2m minus 5 m plus 3 equals. All right, 1 times m plus 3 is just m plus 3. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and distribute this one. So I have negative 2, so that's going to be negative 4m times, and then negative 2 times negative 5, which is going to give me positive 10. All right, all over. And now I have a common denominator, so I can put it all over the same denominator, which is 2m minus 5 times m plus 3. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides of my equation by that common denominator. All right, so I'm going to multiply this side of my equation. Boop, come on. There it goes. Times 2m minus 5 and m plus 3. And I'm going to do the exact same thing to my other side of the equation. Remember, what you do to one side of an equation, you must do to the other side. So I'm going to also multiply this side by 2m minus 5 and m plus 3. Now what's going to happen is they're going to simplify out my denominators. So I no longer have those. I have now simplified out or cleared the denominators of my problem. So I'm now going to rewrite what I have left, which should at this point be just the numerators. So I have m plus 4 equals m plus 3 minus 4m plus 10. Now this is a very simple multi-step equation that I can just solve for m. So I'm going to start by combining my like terms. So I have m plus 4 equals, so m minus 4m is negative 3m, and 3 plus 10 is 13. All right, I'm going to add 3m to both sides. And I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides. So that's going to give me 4m equals 9. Divide both sides by 4. M equals 9 over, stop that, over 4. And you can leave it just like that. You don't have to change it to a decimal. I don't really want it to be a decimal. I would much rather you leave it as a fraction. All right, that is it though. So really it looks pretty tedious. It looks like there's a lot of little steps in there, but honestly, it's just, if you can add and subtract fractions by creating common denominators, you can solve rational equations. All right, so step number 1, factor, create your common denominators. Step number 2, multiply both sides by that common denominator. And then step 3, solve the numerators that are left over for your variable. All right, I hope that was helpful for those of you who maybe haven't seen this before or don't really remember it from Algebra 1/Algebra 2. Yeah, but that is our rational equations video. Until next time, bye.